Hey everyone, this is Al from BluFo Innovations again. In our last video, we applied some style to our header using inline CSS. We changed some colors, we changed the font, we realigned some elements, and things look much better now. But as we also discussed, this isn't really the best way of doing things. When you apply all of your styling inline, your HTML document gets really messy and difficult to maintain. So in this video, we're going to redo all of the styling we did in an external style sheet. And the first thing we're going to do, unfortunately, is to erase all the styling that we did in the last video. So I'm going to get rid of all of that styling so we can start new. And now what I'm going to do is create a new file. So I'm going to go here and create a new file, and I'm going to call this style.css. And you can see when I create that file, it gives it a new icon here showing its CSS that's different from our HTML file. And now I'm going to start typing in my styling in this CSS file. So the first element I want to style is the body element. Now the syntax here is a little bit different from when we do our style inline. In a style sheet, we want to just type the name of the element, and then we want to add curly braces. And if you type the opening curly brace, VS Code will fill in the closing brace for you. And then between these, we want to put our parameters and values. So in our last video, our body element had a couple different parameters. We had a margin of 0, and you want to close that line with a semicolon. Then the next parameter was a background color, and we used a light steel blue color. Again, close that with a semicolon. And then the last parameter was the font family. And we used this Gill Sans font family. So I'll go ahead and save this, and you'll see it's the same styles that we put into the body element inline in the last video, except it's in a much neater format, and more importantly, it's kept separate from our HTML file. So I already saved it. Let's take a look at our page. What happened? Well, I'll explain. We typed out our CSS styling again, but our HTML file doesn't know that this style.css file exists. We haven't told it that it's there. So what we need to do now is we need to attach that file to our HTML document. To do that, we're going to go into our HTML file, and we're going to add something to our head. Not our header, but our head. So we're going to add a link element, and we're going to give it an attribute of rel, R-E-L, and this will be style sheet. And then we're going to say href, which you know by now is a link, and that's going to be to our style.css file. And I'm going to close that element. And basically, this is just saying, hey, I need to go get a document that's a type style sheet, and here's the document to get. So now our style.css file should be attached to this HTML document. I'm going to save it, and let's take a look at our page. There it is. It applied our style. It has a margin of 0, so it got rid of that margin. It applied the background color, that's the light steel blue, and then it changed our font, and things are looking a lot better. So now we can apply more styles knowing that our style sheet is attached. Let's go back to our style.css, and let's start working on the next element. The next element we want to style is the header element. So again, we're just going to type the name of it with our curly braces, and we're going to start putting our parameters and values in here. So our header had a different background color, right? The first parameter is background color, and I use that dark blue. So I'm going to type in the hexadecimal number for that. Then the next parameter was padding. We gave it a padding of 20 pixels. And then the last parameter was a box shadow. And I said 0, 0, and then this time it was that same color, blue. And I will save it. And if we go back again, there it is. Look at how quickly we did that. And again, all of our styling is separate from the HTML document. Then we can start going through these pretty quickly. So the next element we'll style is the nav, and this had just one parameter. This had a display of inline block, which again puts it in line with our logo image. We'll take a look at that. There it is, moved it over really quickly. And the next element to style is the div element. And this had a couple different parameters as well. So it had a float to the right, which pushed it to the right side of the page. It also had a color of white, which made those titles white. And then it had a text align end, which pushed everything to the right side of that div. So let's go ahead and save that and take a look at our page. Well, things look a little messed up. Yes, our titles are now white and they got pushed to the side of the page, but our footer looks totally screwed up. Everything moved over. Well, why is that? If you remember a couple videos ago when we made our footer, it's because we also have divs in our footer. So when we apply styling to the div element, it applies it not just to one div, it applies it to all divs. So we need to come up with a way to be more specific and tell it which div we're actually trying to style. And as I go through this video, I'll show you a couple different methods. And the first one will work really well in this situation because we know we want to apply these styles to only one div, and that's a div that's inside our header. So before div here, I'm going to write header, which is again our parent element, and then div is the child element. So it's saying let's apply these styles only to the div or divs that are inside of our header. So by making that one small change, if I save it, we go back to our page, there you go. It applied those styles to the one div that's inside our header, but not to the other divs that are inside of our footer. So that worked really well for that situation. And let's style our next element, which was the H1 element. And this had just two parameters. If you remember, it had a text transform to uppercase, which will make all of the characters uppercase. And then we changed the color, and I changed it to my pink color, which was FD016E. Close that with a semicolon and take a peek. That looks much better. And then the last thing that we have to adjust to get ourselves back to where we were before is just the links in our navigation bar. And those links use the A tag, which also had a few parameters. So again, we had a color of white. Then we had a text transform to uppercase. Then we had a font weight of bold to make the text more bold. Then we added some padding around those links to space them out a little bit more. So we had 10 pixels of padding. And then the last one was a text decoration of none, saying we want none. We don't want that underline there. So let's take a look. And applying it to the A element, or all A elements, worked. It changed our nav bar. But again, it also changed all of the A elements that we have down in our footer, which you may want. In certain situations, you may want that. But in our instance, we don't want to deal with those yet. For now, we just want to focus on the nav bar. So again, let's go back into our style sheet. And ahead of this A element, I just want to add nav. Again, it's going to say all of the A elements that are inside of our nav element. Nav is a parent, A is a child or children elements. And this time, if we go back, there it is. Our nav bar, our header, everything is complete. It's right back to where we were with the inline CSS. Our footer isn't touched, but isn't this so much more clean and understandable? Our HTML document is relatively untouched other than where we linked to our style sheet. And all of our styling is right here, neatly organized in this CSS file. So even though we spent this whole video just getting back to the same place we were at the end of the last video, we're set up for a much easier future moving forward. In the next video, we're going to work on styling the main section of our page and the footer. We'll see you over there.